Hello everybody, welcome back to From Rhythm to Algorithm. We continue on with our derivation. So a couple of the theorems and ideas that I want to revisit from the past couple episodes because we're working through, I think it's new intuition, but again, you can't have complete proof. So maybe I just haven't iterated with as much detail. I don't know, but like I said, it definitely struck me. We certainly completed ordinality and it struck me as novel. But I wanted to review some of those ideas again and then continue on with the derivation. So what is a fraction to an exponent? Right? I said, I at least put it on the screen last episode that exponents are fractions as a theorem. And again, remember, still overall, what we're trying to do is find the right question. What is the theme of mathematics? Mathematics is built on theme. It's this self-contained question. So we're just trying to produce, I'm pulling along this intuition and this empirical evidence, always renormalizing, showing you something you can, I'm saying these words and this is what it means physically. But all we're trying to do is ask the right question, and then the question will contain the syllability, the letters, to define our, to stabilize sensorality and produce our next axiom. And so, right, because if you have an exponent to a negative number, and then again, like last episode, we didn't even, whole numbers and natural numbers are logically equivalent. We talked about the irreducibility aspect, but again, already in structured mathematics, you know, if someone has a negative number, right, it's indicative of direction. And so if you have a negative exponent, it's a fraction. And conversely, if you have a fraction, you know, with a negative exponent in the denominator, you flip the fraction. So it's still within this reciprocity, right? Anything that has reciprocity like that is within this, again, what I'm calling R3. I'm going to go back to calling it R3 just because it's easier than every single time saying, we live in an environment with two stabilized components, and then, you know, it's open, right? We're exchanging radiation, everything is temperature, and so mass cannot be destroyed, but it can change form. And so a fraction to an exponent is just kind of two manifestations of one another, and then a logarithm is a form of an exponent. And so specifically, right, last time we showed this difference, you do not have a unique word for one as a denominator, which, you know, mathematically, numerically, trivially just produces whatever the numerator is, you know, n divided by 1 is n, but there's no words that exist for that denominator. Whereas if you're an ordinal number, you're in first place, second place, third place, first is equivalent to 1. And so exponents versus fractions, logically you read them out, for example, you know, just 3, right? If you have n to the 3, right, you'd say that's the third power. If you have 1 over 3, you would say that's 1/3. Then last time we showed this, right, first, second, third, straight up ordinal numbers, you have a word third, and then if you have half, a third, and then fourth, fifth, sixth, getting back to that th. And so this word third is consistent between the two. Physically, they're different, and again, this growth, and right, like why is it growth? Why isn't it decay? And so again, it's just, again, we're learning the universe stabilizes properties, things move forward. And so that's why it's to the growth aspect. I can probably develop that a little further. But regardless, we have this consistency, third used for both fractions, but it introduces these specific generalized limits, meaning articles, right? A basketball, an apple, the swimming pool, right? So the specific article is the most specific limit. Again, they're generalized because all of these, where you use a and an in front of any vowel in English, is typically how it's presented, any vowel sound. And so, right, if you say a third, you're always referencing a fraction. And if you say third, you're referencing the ordinal number of placement. And so we have that immediate logical mathematical differentiation by the introduction of one sound, one letter, a limit, a logical limit, a, or an, or the. But then again, right, now we've derived the th and then the e, the. All right, so thing, the, three, third, and then continuing to show that consistency. And then so we also, I just have written down, what is 3 to third? Because again, all of these are rooting back to this cardinal number of 3. Just whatever we would say 3, you know, third or third place, a third or third place is reference to third. we derived and completed ordinality as presented, and then what is the actual motivation of these different, what differentiation does ordinality versus cardinality really establish? Has something to do with chronology. We talked about that last time. But, right, the last kind of word that linguistically and logically matters here is theme, right? Theme is the basis of mathematics, but linguistically, obviously, theme, R to the N is a geometric identity, and then N to the M is a geometric identity. So 3 and theme are extremely close linguistically. Third, not so much. But again, 3 is the iterated with R. And so we get the, 3, theme. And then still, what is third? What is the theme of a third? Right? I've sold eighths. I've never sold thirds. Hypothetically, of course, of bay leaves, of course. But what is the theme of a third? And so now then again, we can add some more nuance or analysis of what is inversion and what is opposition. Because of chronology, right, what is the opposite of this notebook? Right, this is mass. We'll just call this a chunk of mass. What is the physical opposite of mass? It would be nothing. It would be non-existence. And nobody's ever interacted with non-existence, nothing. I mean, no, nothing is nothing. You can't, it doesn't exist. And that's where 0 comes from. And then the unit 1, there is some sort of mathematical articulation where this is kind of identified, and I've said this in speciality over email several times, but there's verbiage that I heard about the field with one element. And that's not really anything, but there's some intuition of, again, the stabilization of R1, of what this field with one element would be. But regardless, because there's no physical opposition to mass, you can't have nothing. The opposite of something, again, when we're in this R3, the opposite of left is right, but that is bounded within this universal phase change that we're now calling R3, which really isn't, it's an unstabilized dimensionality. And so, inversion is not opposition, meaning if you take the inverse of something, right, a reciprocal is inverse, but opposition, because of this, you can't have 0 mass. You can't go back to 0. You can't ever get to 0. In the past, there was nothing, but there was nothing, but we're not going back to nothing. Right? We're going forward. Things learn. The universe is stabilizing physical properties about itself. And so opposition only exists within this open dynamic. And right, I keep saying it, but the natural opposite of mass is nothing, and that doesn't exist. That's kind of like you can't go back, you can't destroy mass. And that's the mathematical representation of the difference of inversion versus opposition. And so that was important to point out. That's super logical. I don't know if people are going to pick up on that, or we'll see if it plays another role. In any one of these steps that needs to be developed more, again, will be undeniable with a final resolution showing this linguistic, the letter by letter iteration of sensorality into its 2 words that is differentiated out into. And so, infinitesimality is the inverse of infinity, right? Something, you have, infinity is the awareness that there's shit out there we'll never interact with. A set that gets bigger at a decreasing rate is infinitesimal. Trying to break down something to its base level is infinitesimality. But the inverse of infinity, of things getting bigger, is not getting smaller or going to 0. It is getting bigger slower. But again, this is such a logical step because infinity is a concept. It's not a physical thing. It's the awareness that measurement is limited. And so this is probably the most logically out there section of this proof that we've been at. But infinitesimality is the inverse of infinity, and infinity is not well defined. And it's kind of, again, the range is not physically out there somewhere. But it's an important logical step. I'm not going to try to continue on. If it's relevant again, we'll certainly hit it again. Sensorality is infinitesimality. And so again, we generalize infinitesimality. We take that I to an A. It just is. But really all we've stated there is the conservation of mass has some sort of direct mathematical implication. You can't have an opposite of mass. You can't have nothing. Moving on. A third is a fraction, third is placement. We've already covered that. Fields are emergent from discreteness, right? Literally a field of grass, right? You see a big field, and then you go and look it up real close, and there's a bunch of discrete little blades of grass. There's a bunch of discrete little electrons. There's a bunch of discrete little particles. And so fields are emergent, and again, that was back to last episode. Physically, hearing the word field gives me AIDS, but logic is continuous, right? Natural opposition exists in this, right? Where you have two stabilized components, like natural opposition arises. It does not arise for the universal phase changes. And so, right, a field makes sense for anything that's continuous, being logic, right? Because like I'm producing information, I'm going to die in an irrelevant time frame for the whole species, but that logic will continue. And so fields are emergent from discreteness. That's why it does not apply to physics. Instability produces disorder. Disorder is disorderality. So again, all we did was hyphenate that, take that di, which we've clearly proven is the stabilized linguistic element of two things, dimension, dilution, I don't know. I mean, you see it a bunch. And then we just generalized sorter. And so again, now we've kind of like forced that S over there, like that pendulum, the S has gone over sorderality. Sensorality is sorderality. And again, I keep pointing it out, but this negation, this dis prefix introduces that S. And the S isn't really like part of any base, it's just like an iteration thing. Again, all of this stuff will come together with the reduction of the language. Again, we reduced that completing ordinality, part 260, everything I've done. Like I said, that was a mathematically completing episode for all of my derivation as well. Sensorality is why spelling is sounded out, right? You're a kid, you say, hey, I don't know how to spell that word, and they say sound it out. We're connecting cliches. Sensorality is sound. Sensorality is soundality, right? That logic is sound. That is what you're appealing to, is consistency. Sensorality is thirdality. Sensorality is thirality. Thirdality is threeality. So now generalize the number 3 written out as a word. T-H-R-E-E, right? The pronunciation, if you just put ality on there without removing any letters, you get threeality, but it's going to look a little funny. But now instinctually, and again, some of these letters I drop, but it's very clear. It just is. And so you drop that second E on 3, and then you put ality. And then you get, right, TH, reality, threeality. So again, remember, reality is just a form of a solution, re and ality, prefix and suffix. And so threeality is a thing, and again, something with this th, again, the, three, theme, and we've derived threeality. So yeah. Sensorality is resolutionality. Sensorality is revolutionality. Convoluted is confusing, right? Convolution is typically, right now today, you can go find anybody, and when they say the word conflate, they mean convolute. It's pretty much, I would say it's 100% accurate. Find anybody that says, oh, he's conflating idea A with idea B, and he's convoluting. He's confusing them. He's not conflating. Conflating is a modification to the prefix of inflating. You're not conflating balloons or something. You mean convolution. Convolution is confusing. What is ordinality to originality? Right? Order originates. Sensorality is originalitality. Movement depletes energy. Straining depletes energy. Sorry, Newton, big guy, when you're sitting under there a rock and you're stressing and you're stressing and you're stressing, your tension is preserving what is now identified as potential energy, but you're losing your ability to tense because you're straining. You're depleting your ability to do work. So you haven't done work by not doing movement, but you've depleted your ability to do work. So, sorry, Newton, suck a fat dick. A 3-leaf clover is a good luck charm, right? Third time's a charm. And then you have 3-leaf clovers are charms. All right. So sensorality is a good luck charm. Being is, because remember, cliches are just encapsulations of well-known logic. They're cliches because they hold a lot of truth to them. Being is, being exists, right? So now we've connected this ing thing to being. Language is thematic. Order is thematic. Nuality is novelty. Sensorality is novelality. Again, just adding ality straight up to novel. These spellings will be on your screen if you're just listening. But now, again, we just iterate that E to the A. Novality. Sensorality is novality. Language is mathematics. Sensorality is researchality. Arching bends. And again, look at the word research, generalize it, you produce the word arch. A lot of arching. Yeah, you know what, you're thinking of what I'm thinking. Right, but it produces the phrase, that theorem produces the phrase or the cliche, I had to bend over backwards. When somebody says that, what are they appealing to? Right, I'm doing something so difficult. They're appealing to our natural anatomy, which is a geometric relation, where you can't bend over backwards because we bend this way. But just, an appeal to something being very difficult or going way out of your way to help somebody or do a favor for somebody. Doing something that's not easy, specific, kind of particularly in the context of for somebody else, but bending curves. And so continuing on with our derivation, revisiting anything that seems like big intuitive steps. But again, all of the logic is already contained within the letters. We just have to ask the right question that will elicit the right intuition. And then the letters that are already present in these words will pair up. That's all we're doing is rooting logic. In the same way you find the factors of a polynomial, you find, right, the prime numbers, or you can only factor a prime number with one in itself. We are factoring logic. And you have to have a complete functional analytical application of physics and mathematics, and then that's where you start. I mean, that's like where you begin to start doing anything, which has never been seen before ever. My rights continue to be violated as profound and extensive torture. After part 260, that has completely mathematically reduced every bit of things that I've produced up until that point. The financial value is literally undefined. But my life is destroyed. My health has been destroyed. I've never had a career. I've never had a family. I've never felt safe. I've never been able to buy food. I've never been able to go to school. I've never made a friend. And I certainly would never in a million years ever be able to get a girlfriend or a wife. So anything that actually matters in life, sure, I can do all this logic shit. Who gives a flying fuck? My life is destroyed. It's always been destroyed, and it will continue to be destroyed. At this point, there is not a single person that exists that could do something to help me that isn't aware of my work and simply doesn't give a flying fuck. It is all illegal. Everybody involved in the suppressing of science will face the fullest legal extent, and that's all I can say on the camera. So thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next one.